our guest speaker. Nancy Crater is from Arizona Game and Fish, and she's going to talk to us about urban wildlife and how is it that we can live side by side with urban wildlife and, you know, preserve our limbs and the limbs of our pets and those of the wild animals.
Thank you very much. Okay, hello. Yes, I'm Nancy. What I'm doing today, this is going to be an extremely shortened version of this urban wildlife program that we started about a year ago. So it really can run the gamut from like just the tiniest creatures on up. I do this program for a lot of like HOAs or other community organizations, at libraries, things like that. And some of the places have a lot of people that have just moved here, which is why we cover some of, you know, the real little things. Since I don't do any sort of memorizing the script, I'm gonna try to keep on track for you guys and keep looking at the clock. I'm not excited to go back to the office. I just wanna make sure I don't have you here all day. I've been talking about wildlife for nearly 30 years now, so I really can sometimes get off into the weeds. So during this, we'll kind of talk about the more common ones that you're gonna find in either your backyard, your neighborhood. I do include a couple at the end you're more likely to maybe run into like out on a trail. But here in Arizona, we've got a lot of great outdoor spaces and a lot of people are very active. So I do wanna include those. And at the end, we'll kind of go over some tips for making your house a little safer, your neighborhood, you know, your community a little bit safer. And at the end, if you guys have some questions, I will try my best to answer them. I have to tell kids all the time, there is only so much information my brain can hold anymore. So every time I learn something new, something else has to fall off the plate. So I know a little bit about a lot of different animals, but not a lot about one, if that makes sense. So just keep that in mind, but we will start going through this, and some of these will go a little quicker on, but just let me know. Oh, I do have this on, correct?
Did you turn it on?
Yeah, that was off. Then there's green. It's buzzing at me. Okay, I'm not crazy. It's on. Me and electronics.
She can do it from the back.
Oh,
Point it the right way.
This needs to be in it, right?
in the computer or
In the
this?
computer.
That's
Yeah.
what I thought.
Okay, yeah. Oh, that'll help me, that'll help me. I was like, I know I am bad. Okay, there we go. So I just wanted to use this picture here of the black widow. I have them around my property and I just let them be. I'm very much, since I've spent a lot of years working with wildlife, I'm very much a live and let live kind of person. However, I want people and pets to be safe first and foremost, and I'm comfortable relocating pretty much everything. But by all means, take care of things if you need to take care of them. No judgment here. But I wanted to include this picture because it's both the male and the female black widow. You never have to worry about the male black widow. If you see obviously the smaller one is the male. The female is that typical with the red belly. And just some of the symptoms, pretty typical. Any of our creepy crawlies kind of have a lot of the same symptoms where there'll be pain at the bite. One thing I can always recommend is if you are concerned, calling the poison control. They are wonderful with sort of what symptoms do you have. This is your next step with really everything from the little stuff up to some of our larger creatures. I do have the two scorpions here, that Desert Hairy right there, and the bark scorpion. So just real quick, you can look at this bark scorpion. This is the one I really don't want people to mess with. It's really considered in Arizona the only one to be potentially life-threatening, typically for the young or the elderly or immunocompromised. And these are the only ones that are going to be crawling like walls. So let me back up. That desert hairy scorpion does not have the ability to climb walls, and it's easier for me to tell them apart. Even if this was I've seen many of these as babies, they still have very large pinchers, I guess I'm just going to call them that, and the segments. And just look at the kind of size of those. I don't want to call them fat. It's not fat, but just the really large segments on that compared to how skinny they are on this one. And so I do have the poison control or poison central, their number. I have that at the end as well. I will say this, a friend used to work at the Phoenix Zoo for over 20 years and had a coworker that got bit on the ankle by a bark scorpion. And the craziest thing I learned there, well, she was in a lot of pain, but she was fine. The weird part came like 3 months later or something like that. She had like phantom pain again. So their neurotoxin is a little crazy and you really don't want to mess with these. So I just suggest sending these to the sky if you have them in your house. I'm okay with them and can move stuff around, but really I don't want anybody else risking their pets or them. Yes?
What's the best way to kill a bark scorpion?
Squish.
Yeah, I'm like, shoe?
Fire and gun scrubber.
Fire would work too, I guess, yes, but if it's in your house, then we don't want to have to call him.
Yeah, don't
Yeah.
start your weeds on fire, your house on fire.
Yeah. The Sonoran desert toad. So this is the one we want to worry about with our dogs especially. It's pretty toxic. Well, it'd be to humans or dogs, but this is the problem when we have the monsoon rains. These come out, our dogs are in the backyard unattended, especially if it's at night. The quickest way, especially if it's dark out, but your dog comes back in acting funny. Any of those symptoms, I have terrible eyesight and should have brought my reading glasses, but excessive salivation, obviously unless you're checking their heartbeat, you might not notice the irregular heartbeat. The number one thing I've seen is that gait, the awkward gait, and they look like they're really drunk. Get them to the vet, emergency vet, as soon as possible. This is, no good. So really, during monsoon season, that's really about the only time you really have to worry about these. If you're comfortable, pick up the toad and move it outside the fence. Or wear gloves if you want to. Just make sure you wash your hands and things like that. Rattlesnakes. I'm just going to include the one. I will say this. Having lived in different parts of the country where there are dangerous snakes that don't alert you to where they are, and in the case of like cottonmouth, water moccasin will come after you and you can't hear them. I will happily take rattlesnakes any day of the week. I go, horseback riding. I love it. I have never had a problem with a rattlesnake. They either let me know well in advance, or they just are like, yeah, we're not gonna eat the horse, and I have to look and make sure they're even alive. You would think most people are going to get bit on the foot, the leg, the ankle from rattlesnakes. It's always hands. It's always hands when it's like rattlesnakes or Gila monsters. And it's not always people. I mean, messing with something. We just sort of probably get in the habit of, like picking up something, and you really, no matter where you are in Arizona, not a good idea to pick things up with your hand in a spot where your eye can't see. I even had a lady that went, oh, I never even thought about that. I will dig around some of the bushes in my backyard for cleaning up after the dog, you know, and trying to make sure she gets everything picked up. She goes, I've never even looked under there before I put my hand under there. And I'm like, well, you've been lucky, you know, then, and depending on what neighborhood you're in. Rattlesnakes. I personally work a lot with Rattlesnake Solutions. They have volunteers all over the state. No matter where you are, they'll come and get the rattlesnake and take it to the proper release location. They work with a lot of fire departments too, with making sure the snakes get put into a proper location for release. I will say, it's probably like embarrassing to admit, but until I worked for Game and Fish, I didn't realize just how specific, even in the valley, all the rattlesnakes we might find around here have very specific areas that they can be relocated into. I should say not areas, but habitats. And so the most common one we'll encounter is this western diamondback rattlesnake, but you may even get the speckled rattlesnake, which depending on where you're at, can be a wide variety of colors. The ones we typically see up by work tend to be more orange colored, but pretty much out, if you go hiking or walking out at the white tanks, they are all like a gray-white color out there. It's kind of crazy. If you want a lot of information about rattlesnakes too, Rattlesnake Solutions has a whole thing on their site for learning about all of the different species we have in Arizona, where you find them, how common it is, if they have any sort of behavioral differences among themselves, and kind of dispels some of the myths. He actually trained us in capturing and relocating rattlesnakes, so he's definitely top notch. Don't mess with these. Call the fire department, call Rattlesnake Solutions. Don't try to handle that yourself, and make sure you get your dogs or pets inside. Raptors, the only thing I want to say here is this is kind of the more common ones you're going to find around here. That red-tailed hawk, great horned owl, a Harris hawk, or potentially a kestrel, since you guys have some open areas here. And people will often ask if they have to worry about their pets when it comes to raptors. I would say, yeah. If they're small enough, you bet. I will say the biologist said they would worry much more about coyotes than they would raptors. But that being said, I just have always thought as well, like, hey, if you're kind of close to your pets, the birds aren't really gonna bother them. And recently, like last month, there was a girl in Tucson, like apartment complex. So you know how small their balconies are. So there was room for 2 chairs out there. She's sitting in one. Her cat walks out, and I would not have believed it if I hadn't seen it, but a great horned owl swooped in and tried to get the cat while she was sitting right there. So it tells me either that owl was probably young, or probably not, has like excessively hungry, maybe had an injury or illness, that it would attempt to do that. So I would never say never after seeing that video. But yes, around here, your problem is going to be much more the coyotes. The best thing to do is taking your small dog out, not just being close by it, but having the leash on is very important. And I say that one because I had a neighbor behind me. I was able to get the dog away from the coyote, but unfortunately it did not end up surviving. She put the dog down, walked out her back porch, set it down on the patio, and the coyote came from the side of the house. Obviously used to watching her routine. We live on some horse properties, so they're everywhere. There's no stopping the coyotes if you have lawns. If you have lawns, you have rabbits. If you have rabbits, you have coyotes. Like we have to pick what we want, honestly. But the birds I wouldn't worry as much about. The skunks, we do have 4 different species of skunks. These are the 2 that you might run into though most commonly. That spotted skunk or the striped skunk. The most important thing to remember is all 4 different species have different properties to their spray. So that little spotted skunk, they're about 1 pound. They're literally like this big, like a little oversized potato. Their spray, and I got this from the biologist, is something you can wash out with shampoo. That's all you need. It doesn't have any of the oil properties. I will say, as someone who has not been sprayed by the striped skunk, like, I think it's like crazy, kind of interesting and cool how their spray works, because it has that oil. The old wives' tale about using tomato soup does not work. I also say that as experience from our poor dog on the farm growing up, got sprayed, and my mom and dad were like hosing that dog down with tomato soup or tomato sauce. Yeah, it doesn't do anything. All it must have done back in the day was sort of kind of mask some of the smell or something. I'm not sure how that started, but there is oil in that spray, and it sticks to fur, clothing, whatever that may be. And the only way to get that out is to use something that has like an oil remover. So the Dawn dish soap, what they use on some of the oil spills, those ducks and things like that, you have that mixture. Some of the like I don't know if it's OxyClean, but something that oxidizes as well. And those sort of things, and we'll probably have to do a couple applications, but can get that out. But I find it fascinating that that's how nature ended up designing them, because say they spray a coyote, just imagine like 2 weeks later, like the smell is probably gone from the coyote, they find some pond and they're like, yeah, time for a drink of water. They step in it and water actually reignites it. And so it brings it back fresh as like a double warning for that potential predator to really remember about that black and white colored guy he ran into a little while ago and sprayed him with that. Like, I really, really better leave that one alone. I find it honestly fascinating. I'll believe that until I probably have my first encounter. The thing you want to look out for though is if it's active during the daytime. I've seen them really stumbling, frothing at the mouth. Anything like that, you need to call someone. That animal needs to be taken care of quickly before it injures animals, pets, you guys, anything like that. And also with the skunks, I will say, they have to live within a mile of a water source. So that's why they're not like a desert adapted animal. So you're not really gonna find them out in the middle of the desert. They're always gonna be within a mile of a water source. And they really eat anything, and they eat anything that's kind of in season. So down here, it probably doesn't matter a whole lot whether it's summer or winter, but back in the Great Plains in the winter, they're gonna eat a lot of things they can either dig up, berries, mice, things like that. Our javelina. Okay, these things, probably the biggest 2 problems with these animals is they have terrible eyesight, and they tend to react based on smells or sounds, and the fact that people either inadvertently or blatantly feed wildlife. I know a lot of people that maybe put food out for wildlife their intentions are good. You think you're helping animals. But I would say almost 100% of the time, when you're talking animals, especially from this size up, it is a death sentence for that animal. I just want to tell you right now that that is what you're doing, because you are going to create animals that get used to people feeding them, and they look at other humans besides you as a potential food source. On a small scale, when I worked at the zoo, that turned into lots of the free roaming birds having to be caged because so many people fed them. And they started getting aggressive with people just pushing their little babies in strollers. Can't have that. And so those animals had to pay for humans' actions by now being put in a cage for the rest of their life. Javelina or anything bigger than that is going to be euthanized if they are considered an animal that is unafraid of people. And the unintentional feeding does come from, say, myself included, I have fruit trees. You need to be making sure that you're cleaning up around any fruit trees, vegetable garden, anything that's fallen on the ground. If you have any of the nut trees, anything like that is what they're gonna be attracted to. Garbage is a big one. If you can, put the garbage out on garbage day. Don't have it out there. I put my garbage cans in my garage. I bring them out on garbage day. That being said, these guys can be smart enough to figure out what garbage day is. It's 6 of one, half dozen of another with them sometimes. But the thing, if you do run into any of these and you have a dog with you, is this is an animal you want to just back away from. Like I said, they can't see very well. They're gonna base their reaction off of smell and sound. And to a lot of wild animals, a dog is a coyote, potential coyote. They don't really know the difference. It's just a canine, and they will react accordingly. And so they may run erratically, and if they can't see where they're going, there's no way for you to maybe get out of the way, because this animal doesn't even know where it's charging. It's just erratic and running. And they can do, some damage. So just back away from those guys. I just included these together just to show you, how very similar some of their coloration is. Kit fox, gray fox, coyote. The one around here is definitely going to be the coyote, but I have heard of some of the gray fox kind of moving, getting a little more urbanized. With the coyotes, so after I talked to a biologist, I have even learned a few things. And he said, if you are not actively, if you run into a coyote and you don't actively try to get it out of your space, they become desensitized to people and kind of acclimated. He's like, if you aren't actively trying to scare them away, it is inadvertently getting them used to being around people. Now, that being said, you always need to keep your safety, your pet safety, children's safety in mind first. So I am the crazy person. Like I said, we have horse property, there's rabbits, coyotes are around. I just don't want them in my yard. So if I hear them out by the canal, yeah, I'm running out there with a flashlight in my pajamas, screaming like a lunatic. And they tend to leave my property alone, actually. I've done it probably 6 or 7 times. The biologist said you really want to have anything large, like a walking stick, something noisy. They make those coyote shakers, where you can make those at home, just some rocks in a bottle. Anything that can make a lot of noise and scare them away. You want to keep eye contact. You don't want to run. You do want to pick up a small dog that's with you. So you just want to kind of try to avoid some of the spaces they might be in, like ravines or heavy vegetation areas. It's best if you're walking maybe with a second person. That's just always a general good rule. Feed your pets indoors. Again, that kind of goes back to feeding wildlife. This is one of those inadvertent things. If you put pet food outside for your pet, it's attracting wildlife as well. Don't have, again, just like the vegetables, fruit on the ground, just like the last thing. Really cleaning up anything that could attract rodents. They love that. And really a neighborhood effort. I realize it's not probably news people want to hear, but if you take care of your area, you're keeping them out of your backyard. They make coyote rollers for the top of fences to help keep them out of your yard. But if you have a neighbor that is insisting on feeding their pet outside, and just generally all right, doesn't mind the coyotes. Coyotes are gonna be in everybody's space. So it's really a community-wide effort, but I just do what I can to try to keep them off my property. I have a neighbor that cares for some feral cats, and I just don't want them to be lunchtime. So I just do my part of the deal and try to scare them away, but I know it does nothing. I will tell you, there are pest control companies that will trap them for you. All that does is temporarily take that coyote out. As long as there is food, water, or shelter around, wild animals are going to come back. Again, don't feed. Again, you'll see with all of these like big ones, don't feed. Garbage, pet food, fruits and vegetables. Those are kind of the things we tend to have outside and around the yard, around the neighborhood that attract a variety of wildlife. Even like bird feeders. Bird feeders are now like banned in a lot of different HOAs because people aren't cleaning up after the bird feeder. Bird feeder attracts rodents, and then you've just got the whole food chain on up coming in after the rodents. So bobcats are one. Generally don't really have any like aggressive problems with these cats. The same sort of things that attract them. They tend to come into people's backyard though to have young or to have a break in the shade. They're the ones that tend to kind of sleep under some bushes, things like that. It's rare that there's been any, I think there's only been like maybe one case of one aggressive to people. Especially if it has babies, just let it be. We cannot relocate a mom with babies. It is sentencing all of them to certain death when it comes to cats with their babies, they're young. So those we recommend, if people can live with them in their backyard until they are old enough to leave, and they will all leave. That would be great. You can take some cool pictures. Again, just don't feed. Last but not least, who you might not really run into, but I never say never, and it's probably the one, like when I go camping, I don't even give a second thought, honestly, to mountain lions. They're gonna like stay away from me as long as I don't cross paths with like a mom and babies. Bears, I worry about, again, because of the food issue. Garbage at campgrounds, we cook outside. If people don't store their food correctly, it attracts a lot of bears. Any of the larger wildlife, you definitely don't want to run. They have the instinct to chase. And bad idea, they can run as fast as a horse. The reason the weight is so varied is because usually the females are much smaller than the males, and you just want to make sure food is always secure. So some things to do around your area, home, neighborhood, any litter, trash, you know, like piles of wood, things like that that can attract everything from those small spiders up to rodents and above. You just want to kind of have your yard cleaned, keep the lawn, the shrubs, any of the vegetation trimmed up. Again, that's because animals like to just hang out in the shade underneath there. If you don't want them there or don't want to be surprised, kind of keep those things trimmed up. We talked about the food, bird feed. Now this one, depending on what the issue may be, outdoor lights. Typically, outdoor lights, if they're on, are going to attract more bugs, which then, you know, are going to attract the things like the scorpions, bats, you know, things along that nature, maybe some of the small lizards. But if the lights are out, that makes it easier for some of the larger mammals to travel. They like to travel mostly in shadows typically. So if you're in an area that's maybe prone to mountain lions, you might want to have like lights on around your house. If they have a choice, they'll typically go in the dark areas and not be right around your property if it's well lit. And again, when it comes to wild animals though, all we can do is sort of give you like, hey, this is typically how something behaves, or this is typically how something goes, but wild animals are wild, and because of that are unpredictable. There's always some exceptions to any rules. Any damage to the house, the most common areas are gonna be around windows, making sure windows are sealed, doors at the bottom, especially vents. I will tell you, when we built our new wildlife center, we care for some non-releasable animals. we forgot to cover the vent to the dryer laundry area, which we found out after about 1 week. So we got that vent covered. So anything that could be an entry point into a room into the house, you just want to make sure you're getting those fixed. And when it comes to like roofing, it takes like literally this much space for a bat to move in. They need like 1/10 of an inch is all of space to be able to get in. So just keep that in mind. If you're like, oh, I'll get to that later. Okay, it can happen. Where are we at? Oh, irrigation. If you have irrigation to any of your plants, and any animal really can, that has those senses, mostly the mammals can sense the water, and once you have like javelina dig up any irrigation, which they love to do once there's been a leak, they will remember where that irrigation is, and they're gonna continue to come back and destroy those irrigation lines. We run into that issue quite a bit. Even at work, we've had like some erosion take away enough dirt that it exposes some of our lines, and the wild burros and javelina have definitely found it more than once. So we do what we can. Walking stick when you're going hiking or walking your pets, and never a bad thing to have with you. It makes you look and appear a lot larger and gives you something to use as a defense if it comes to it with coyotes or things like that. We talked about the garbage can, and the fencing is the same as the house, just repairing any holes that you might see. Now, if you want to attract certain wildlife, it's easy. It's things like, having a bat box, having native plants for your landscaping, not using pesticides, rodenticides, and you can have bird feeders, bird houses, the pollinator gardens, things like that. A good place to always start with is this citizen science. They have a lot of projects people can do just from their home. And so, like I said, things to remember here, main point, wildlife is wild, can have any unpredictable behavior. And if wildlife is in your area, it has to have a combination or one of the following: food, water, shelter. It's simply not gonna stay there if one of those three or a combination of those three isn't there. Poison control number, game and fish number. If there is something that, I will tell you, unless it's some of the larger animals, we are limited on what our wildlife managers can do. They are spread out around the state. So typically with kind of pest problems with the coyotes and such, the pest control companies take care of that. If there is one that appears to be sick, we need to know about that so we can come get that animal fast, get that tested with our state veterinarian. Or if there's a threat to human life. You probably have read, we've had coyotes go after small children. So those coyotes have to be taken care of immediately before someone gets really hurt or dies. So that is the game and fish number to call if you see or hear about any problems that way. And that is it. There is my email. If anybody after this has questions, you can email me if you think of something later. I will track down the person that probably knows more than me and make sure you got the correct answer. But that is the end of my program. So if anybody has any questions, I don't know how much time we have for questions, really. It's up to you guys. I don't know.
We can take a few questions.
A few questions if anybody has anything. And if not,
Can we chat about good snakes versus bad snakes?
yes, we can. You know what?
Sometimes we get calls about a good snake in a backyard that will keep rattlesnakes away.
Yeah.
And we're like, we really don't want to relocate that snake because it's actually helping.
I don't believe, because I did the mini version here, so I don't think, other than at the beginning slide, I'm gonna go back. So right here is like a gopher snake. People will often accuse that poor snake of being a rattlesnake. Now, by the way, it does act like a rattlesnake to scare off potential predators, so it's not helping its cause. But that is a good one to have around. The king snakes. They're typically the snakes that are, they're gonna be black with either kind of cream colored or yellow stripes. I don't have that picture in this mini version. Those are wonderful snakes to have around if you're worried about rattlesnakes because they eat those. They're called king snakes for a reason. They are immune to rattlesnake venom, and yeah, and that is one of their diet items. They're great snakes to have around. I would say unless a snake is rattling or you see actual rattles, it's a good snake to have around. They're either getting rodents, collecting rodents for you, and again, it goes back to if an animal doesn't have a food source around, it's not sticking around. It's there eating something. And so those are all, yeah, really good snakes to have. I'm trying to think, I think the ones we always encountered were like the gopher snakes and the king snakes. Are there any others like I'm kind of missing? Coach whips? Ooh, well those are so fast. Those things are fast. That is one of the scariest snakes. I handle snakes, I relocate rattlesnakes, and I'm also very phobic. Believe me, when I have to like work, I had to work for years and I can keep it like pushed right here. And all it takes is like one crazy snake to send me right over the edge. And it's usually a darn coach whip. Those things move so fast. They're so hard to get a hold of. Those ones typically range in sort of, the ones we see anyway, I don't know about down here, are mostly pink to red in color. They are fast. They're very thin. They're super fast, harmless. But to people that are scared of snakes, like myself, they can be a little scary, intimidating. Are there any other ones I might be forgetting if you guys think of anything you run into? Okay. All right, but again, if you guys have any questions, you have my email address. You guys are welcome to send me anything. But I thank you guys so much for having me here today. I appreciate it.